Good morning, family. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back again to Kisumu. Today we are filming from a very different location, and I'm going to talk about a very specific topic that is really near and dear to my heart. I'm going to talk about how America can change African immigrants, possibly the good, the bad, and the ugly. However, this is not a sob story. I'm just going to focus on some very specific things that you are not likely to hear from anywhere else. Things that we talk about in private, things that we talk about in diaspora, things that you're less likely to hear us talk about when we come home. And I'm going to share this so that hopefully you'll have a better understanding of why some of us choose to come back to Africa. But most importantly, I hope through this story, you will have a better understanding of why we do certain things. Now, as I said earlier, this is not a diss about America. America has been exceptionally kind to us in so many ways, even though we have faced all sorts of challenges. However, personally, I know over the last 20 years that I've been out there, I have changed a lot. Some of those changes I attribute to having lived in America. But then I think there are also others that is just a function of growing older, meeting new people, school, and so many other things. So I hope you find this content informative or useful. And if you do, I hope you subscribe. But again, even if you don't subscribe, I'm really glad you're here. But first, I want to talk about this lake right here. Now, this evening, I'm spending time with my son, Odede. Many of you wonder where the name Wonoridi comes from. If you don't understand my language, Wonoridi simply means the father to Odede. And that gentleman right there is the Odede. So this evening we are spending time in Dunga Hill Camp, somewhere on the shores of Lake Lolwe in Kisumu. Now, the lake that some white people insist we call Lake Victoria. Again, just so you know, Queen Victoria never even set foot on the African shore. However, what we call it is Lake Lolwe. As you can see, there's a lot of cool breeze blowing through, carrying with it greetings from my forefathers. On these shores lay the bones of my most recent ancestors. My connection to this lake is deep, really deep. For thousands of years, this lake has fed, clothed, washed, moved, connected, and buried my ancestors, young and old, male and female, and everyone in between, rich, modest, and all. On this very lake right here, battles have been won, borders have been drawn, babies have been birthed. Fine black men have been forged, and gallant women have been molded. This lake right here is very special. Here is where we learned how to kiss the water. Here is where we learned how to smile with our eyes. And here is where we learned how to speak with our hearts, how to give with both hands, how to lose with grace, how to untether our impure desires, and how to fart harmlessly at night. This lake is special. We call it Namlolwe, where fine men and women come to sip the devil's nectar, where fine men come to pollinate flowers, where fine men and women come to marry, and die. This lake is very special to me. Well, anyway, back to my story about how America has changed some of us. Again, part of the reason I'm sharing this story is also to open up a window to a world that may be new for folks who are thinking about going to America. Most of us never knew some of the things I'm going to share in this video because nobody spoke about them. And we had to navigate some of these waters with very little knowledge, given that we knew no one that was willing to talk about this. So the first thing I'm going to share about how America has changed us is about the issue of developing a very deep appreciation for what we have in Africa. And as I've said in the past, that sometimes it takes a loss to really appreciate what you have. Having lived in America, many of us develop a very deep appreciation for almost everything Africa, of course, with some exception. For example, family. In the village here right now, I wake up in the morning and the first person I see is my mother from her home. Her house is just right next door. My cousins live across, my uncles. You have family around you all the time. Many of us are popped into America with very little family connections. And losing that is something that is very profound. The second thing that we have developed an appreciation for is the weather. As a person who was born and raised right by this shore, as you see right here, I always wondered why anybody cared about the sun. Because in Kisumu, you're almost guaranteed of the sun every single day, with a few exceptions. And so I never really understood why people would marvel about the sun coming out, sunset and all that, because this is what I woke up to every day. But then you come to America and realize there are places where you could go for months never seeing the sun. And of course, in the village, you wake up in the morning and you're surrounded by nature everywhere. There's a ton of birds in our property. You hear animals, lizards, and all that. Just nature everywhere. In many of the places we live in America, yes, there's nature, but not like it is down here in the village. And of course, we have developed a much deeper appreciation for our languages. Whenever I tell my American friends that the average Kenyan speaks 3 to 4 languages, in their mind, some of them think that we must be real geniuses. And of course, we won't tell them this. What they don't realize is that a lot of us picked up languages when we were young, both in school and in our neighboring environments. In America, they wait till the kids are older, then they force them with languages, and eventually kids barely pick up additional languages. And so the average American only speaks one language, which for us as Kenyan, that sounds very strange. But yes, going there, you realize how beautiful it is for us to be able to communicate in multiple languages. In fact, when we tell them that in an average Kenyan conversation, we often speak multiple languages in the same sentence, they just mind blown. When for us, that is just normal. And then, of course, in the village, the sense of informality, where you've got unscheduled meetings, flexible plans, time that is loosely defined. That sense of informality is something we really miss when you live in a very structured environment, such as where we live. And in my previous video, I also talked about the issue of cultural fit. Back at home, when it comes to cultural connections, it's so easy because this is the culture I grew up in. And so there's very little that I have to guess. But in America, you find people from every corner of the earth. And so culturally, it takes a lot to really adjust, especially for men. And then the issue of a sense of community. Back at home, of course, we are always surrounded with family, or surrounded by family, friends, and a very tight-knit community. In America, we develop similar systems, but it's just not the same. And talking about the environment, again, back in the village, so much unmolested environment everywhere all the time. And so what I'm simply saying with this first point is that living in America has really taught us to deeply appreciate what we have back in Africa. And so don't be surprised when we seem to get excited about some of the most mundane things back at home. I know when my friends in Kenya meet me talking about some small things that I'm excited about, they find it really perplexing. And the truth is, many of us returnees are just excited about some of those things because we know what it means to live without them. Now, on to my second point. America has really taught us, many of us, to develop a much greater appreciation for Black identity. Growing up in Kenya, especially in the village, pretty much everybody looked like me, talked like me. I don't think I ever shared a class with anybody that was probably light skinned or white. And so being black absolutely meant nothing. In fact, the reverse was true in the sense that because of colonialism, some of us were taught to dislike black stuff. And then we come to America, and for people like us, we were thrust into communities where you could barely see a black person. In fact, I got to the point where if I saw a black person, I just wanted to cross the street and just thank them for being black there. Because for the first time in my life, I would joke with my students that for the first time in my life, coming to America made me realize that I'm really a black person. And so we've really developed a deeper appreciation for being black and black culture, the languages, the names. And so a lot of this, I really accredit our African American cousins. I am so thankful that through our connections with the African American community, we've really developed a very deep sense of appreciation for things that are black. And so many of us, when we have kids, you will notice we often give them all African names. As you see, your daddy and the sister, they don't have any Western names. Something that my friends back at home find really strange. When I come back home and I walk through the shops and all mannequins are white, we notice that. And that is something that bothers us. And so what you will notice amongst returnees is that indeed for us, black really is gold. Anything black, whether it's culture, whether it's black people, it's something that we appreciate far more than we did a while back. Now, on to the third point. America really has made me personally to become less sensitive to systems that were designed to control the human mind. Things such as organized religion, culture, traditions. There's so much that we were taught that was used to teach, to control humans. And after living in a different world, we are less sensitive to those things. For example, as a returnee, it will be very difficult for me to take my money to give to wealthy people in church, especially church leaders, when my neighbor next door does not have food or does not have school fees. And so we're not worried about paying tithes and all that stuff when there's other immediate needs that can be taken care of. Now, that also means that we don't worry about things like being cursed, or we don't worship authority. And so when you meet a diasporan who does not respond to things like that, it's just because of some of the interactions with folks in America. Well, the second part is coming in. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you in the next. Thank you.